Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. I walked past my brother in her house. Was it him? By Bethcore. This encounter happened about 12 years ago, but still makes me feel incredibly uneasy. At the time, I lived in our family home with my parents and two brothers. I had a lot of very strange and unexplainable things happen in this house, but this was by far the strangest. The house was 3 stories, and the attic had been converted into my brother's bedroom. I came out of the bathroom on the 2nd floor to see a figure rushed past and run up the stairs to the attic. On the way, we had some boxes stacked up that had been knocked over in this rush. I walked straight to the boxes to stack them back up, and as I did, I looked up the attic stairs to find someone standing there. The staircase was dark, but I could clearly see one of my brothers standing a few steps up. At the time, both my brothers looked very similar, same hairstyle, same build, same height, so it was really hard to determine which one of them it was. For a few seconds, we just stood and stared at each other in silence. Before my eyes could adjust to the dark to see which one it was, the figure ran further up the stairs and into the bedroom. I heard his feet hitting the ground all the way up the stairs, which made me feel uneasy, as they didn't sound familiar. My brothers both have very distinctive footsteps, so I could always tell who was coming before even seeing them. I didn't really question what had happened, but something just didn't feel right. I had this chill running through me and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I made my way downstairs, and all I could think of was which one of them is wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt today, as that is distinctively what I saw this person wearing. I got downstairs and peered into the kitchen. My stomach dropped. Our entire household was in the kitchen. Both of my brothers were there. Both were wearing shorts and colorful t-shirts. There was no one else in the house. It's not just the fact that I saw someone, but I heard them. I can't describe it, but I literally felt their presence. I mean, why did it look like my siblings? Why did it stop to stare at me and then run away? Did it want me to follow it? And what would have happened if I did? I Don't Like to Return to the Home I Grew Up In by Numerous Keys 6822. When I was a child in the early 90s, my family was poorish, lower middle class most definitely. As a young boy around 5, my mother would frequently crack the window to cool my bedroom at night, or at least make it breathable. Frequently throughout my childhood, I would hear tapping at my window, and it would wake me up. I would lay there, just still, pretending to be asleep, and I'd hear a voice say my name over and over. It would be my mother's voice asking, almost begging me to open the window so she could get inside. I would never do it. I listened. "Ryan, come on, it's dark. Open the window so I can get inside." There was one occasion as a child when my mom locked herself out. I was inside, and she asked me to open the window, and she simply slid the screen off, but that was during the day, probably around 2 p.m. That one occasion seeped into my mind as I heard my mother's voice plead with me to open the window in the dead of night so she could get back inside. Guilt would sometimes take over, but I would still just lay there. The voice would go from begging to angry, telling me that I'd be in trouble when she finally got inside if I didn't open the window. But I would never budge. As I grew older, the tapping in the voices continued. Sometimes the voices would change and become that of my friends in the neighborhood. And as I grew older, I began interacting with the voice, telling it, "I know you're not my mom," or "I know you're not Andrew." I never knew what was begging me to come inside. As I entered elementary school, my parents had central air installed, and opening the window became a thing of the past, as did the voices. Or so I thought. When I was in 3rd grade in 1999, I was playing in my room and there was a tap at the window. It was my mom. She told me "Come here and look at this." It was 4:30 in the afternoon, and I had just returned home from school not long before. I thought nothing of it and began to head outside. But as I walked through the living room, my mom was in the kitchen. I approached her and began talking to her. And then I started to walk outside and hung around in the doorway waiting for her. She seemed preoccupied with something in the kitchen, and I asked her what she wanted to show me, and she had zero clue of what I was talking about. I was going to argue with her, but I decided not to. Nothing else like that happened for a very long time. No voices, nothing. But in 2010, when I was 19, my mother passed away. I still lived at home, and it was just me and my dad, and I was in the backyard mowing one day, and as I released the bar, letting the motor shut off, I heard my mother's voice shouting my name. It was clear as day, but it felt like it was within the yard. I told my dad, and he simply attributed it to being my mother's spirit checking on me from the other side, and I shouldn't be afraid to interact. I just nodded and simply moved on. It's 2024 now, 14 years after my mother's passing. My mom and dad both shared a birthday in April, within days of each other. And on the weekend of my mom's birthday, I went home to visit my dad for both of their birthdays. He wasn't there when I got to his house. He was at the cemetery placing flowers. I called him on his cell, and he told me he'd be home soon. I decided to wait. I had my dog with me, who really liked my dad and was familiar with this house. She did not want to be there. I opened the side gate to get into my dad's fenced yard, and she didn't want to follow. I tried to coax her by taking off her harness, and she just sat there. As I looked down at her, plain as day, I heard my mother's voice call my name again. I immediately got goosebumps and looked down at my dog, whose ears were perked up as she glanced into the yard. I walked back to my car and waited for my dad. I didn't say anything to him. Just a Home Robbery by Strawberry Shimmer. This happened a couple of years ago when my cousin Anna and I first moved into a new city. We saved up to get out of our small town and found a rental house that was quite spacious and affordable, but not in the best neighborhood. Anna brought her dog, Baloo, and since we didn't have much, the three of us slept in the same room and on the same mattress. Since we had the dog inside, the backyard door was almost always slightly open so he could do his business. We also felt the house was safe, and it did not occur to us that someone would be able to get into the backyard, since it had a tall wall all around it, and at the top of it, there was some barbed wire. I remember waking up at 12:30 a.m. when I heard Baloo bark, which he rarely did, and then heard very soft clicking steps going through the hallway into the backyard. I woke Anna up to tell her, and she said there was a cat she had caught inside a couple of times. I still don't know how I believed that, but I told myself I must have heard a cat clicking its nails on the floor while running. We stayed awake for another couple of minutes whispering, and even started to softly laugh at jokes. But then we heard someone step into a hollow piece of floor in the backyard that was noisy, and two male voices were also whispering. Our bedroom window led to the backyard. We immediately got scared and sat down, which is when we noticed that Baloo was shaking in a corner of the room and was staring at the door. We didn't actually have a room door, it was just the frame. This dog was scared of literally everything, and I'm surprised he even barked once. I'm surprised he didn't even bark. I got up, dialed 911, but didn't call, and then I handed the phone to Anna for her to dial while I had to run through the hallway and close the door as fast as I could. So much was going through my head. I was planning the whole thing and looking for something I could defend myself with before I ran. Meanwhile, Anna was in shock and had still not dialed or even moved. I ran through the hallway and closed the door, then ran for the only knife we had. I dialed 911, and help arrived quickly, but the men who were there had already left. We knew how they got there since we heard them climb up to the ceiling and walk through the house, then drop to the floor on the front part and then start running. I was shocked and didn't know why I never thought someone would do that. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night and kept thinking about what their intentions might have been. I really doubt they were there to rob us, since we had almost nothing in the house. No furniture, not lots of electronics. My laptop had been left in the hallway that night, and they for sure would have taken that. And knowing how scared and defenseless Baloo is, I think he only barked because they approached our room. I also still think it must have been one of my neighbors, since we were still new there, and they were the ones who knew that two 20-year-old girls lived there. I know not much happened in this story, but I still think my fast acting was due to previous house break-ins that have happened to me. I remember some from when I was a kid, and I seem to have an attraction for this. Now my head is also always playing out scenarios like this and what I should do to stay safe. I should also say that I'm paranoid and scared about 80% of the time, but can't stop thinking that there is a positive side to this, which is that I was prepared to act. I remember seeing Anna just sitting there not being able to do anything, and I think that's what made me act differently. I Met Her and I Don't Know If She Was Real by Samir925. When I was 13 or 14, and I'm 20 now, I used to go to this park, an open gym. Basically, I went there for a few days and saw a girl there almost my age for those days. Then one day I just gathered courage and asked her about directions. It was just an excuse to talk with her. And then we started talking, and then eventually we kind of became friends. I don't even remember a bit what we talked about, besides that direction question. But the only weird thing is, no one ever used to look at her besides me. She only talked to me, and she didn't go to my school either. I mean, this is not like I have a weak memory about anything. It just isn't there. And she asked me to go for a walk, and I went behind her, and we started running and racing around, and then she stopped me in the middle of our race and said, "Let's not go there. Weird guys sit there." Which was true. That part of the park is filled with people who do drugs, drink alcohol, and stuff like that. I told her that was fine, and she said come with me, and we did, and no one stopped us. We were just running around in circles in the park. Then the next day I went again. She was there doing some exercises on the open gym thing. I went near her and said hi, and then we started talking about something, which, again, I really can't think of. But she used to like talking with me. I mean, she was showing interest in me. Eventually, I got a cell phone, and I handed her a paper with my number on it, and she took it, and then we again went for our run. Then we said goodbye to each other, and we both went back home. But the crazy thing that happened here is, she called me the next day at exactly 12:02 a.m., and she said she wanted to see me and come to the open gym. Then I had to cut the call because my mom asked who's there, and I told her it was a wrong number and went back to sleep. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to go around outside at that time. Then the next day, I gathered some courage and called the number back during the afternoon. The exact same number. I told whoever answered that someone had called me, and it was a girl, but they said, "We own this number, and we don't have any daughter." The guy said that he didn't even live close to my area because I did ask him that. Then I just went back to the park and went every day for more than a week, regularly around that time. I never saw that girl again. No one ever talked about her, and she never told me where her house was, where she went to school, nothing. She just disappeared. I thought maybe she was grounded by her parents. And then I thought maybe I had just experienced something very weird. I will say this, though. Whenever I was near her, I always felt cold. Never really wanted to sweat as we ran around. And that went doubly sure for no matter how warm a day it was. Phantom House by Visual Personality 11. This happened in June of 2022, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. My buddy lives in a rural Welsh village, one with a population of what I assume has to be less than 100. Houses are fairly spread out, and it's around 3 to 4 miles from the nearest town or other village. When I head up there to stay with him, we enjoy going on nighttime walks along the country lanes, since it's really quiet and there are barely any cars out after 10 p.m. And this particular night was no different. I feel the need to include that his house is connected to an old chapel, and he's responsible for cleaning it and looking after it. Beforehand, we'd been fucking around in the chapel, throwing footballs around and having a laugh, and this is relevant to the story. Well, I think, anyway. But we thought nothing of those antics. Less than a half hour later, we headed out to go on a walk. It was me, my buddy Lucas, and our other friend Reese. Now, Lucas knows these roads like the back of his hand. He's lived there practically his whole life and has walked this particular route that we headed along more times than he can count. We were walking and ended up just about a mile away from the nearest village, where an old abandoned hotel used to be. The building had been knocked down by now, but there were fences blocking it where it used to be. That didn't creep us out much. But what happened next did. Lucas pointed through a thick layer of trees at what seemed to be a house with no lights on at all. And despite walking this way many times before, he had never seen the house. He insisted that the architecture was a lot different to the houses we usually saw around this area. Sort of European or Germanic, as he claimed. His family is German. He wanted to get a closer look, but the house was blocked off by a construction fence, too, which we thought was really weird. I shone my phone light through the fence, and we got a quick glimpse of the actual building. But then came the weird feeling of dread, and we all got the feeling at the same time. It was eerily quiet. No wind, no bugs, no nothing. Now feeling incredibly uncomfortable, we continued along the trail a little further away from the house. Nearby was a wall blocking off a field, and so we sat on the wall to kind of comprehend what had just happened. Across the field, about a mile off, maybe less, was the village church. We tried to laugh the situation off, covering our uncomfortable feelings with jokes, until a single church bell rang out from across the field. Just one. At that time, it must have been around 11:30 p.m., so it wouldn't have made sense for the church bell to be ringing. And even so, it only rang once, which wouldn't have made sense either. We all kind of looked at each other, and Reese insisted that she felt like we shouldn't have been there, speaking out exactly what we were all thinking. Lucas and I agreed, and we quickly continued onto the path and through a wooded area. The walk back to Lucas's place was long and grueling, and the feeling of dread didn't help at all. We didn't speak about the experience the whole way back, until we felt safe enough to. Lucas was hung up on the fact that he had never seen that house before, and he had never felt that uncomfortable in this particular area before, despite doing this nighttime walk countless times. So, we searched around the area on a live satellite system and discovered that where the house should have been, there was nothing but a patch of dirt and some shrubbery. The whole situation seemed completely fucked to us. Everything just felt wrong. The house, the church bell, even the feeling we got whilst being in that area. A feeling of not being welcome. Reese did a quick search online on ley lines, and if any of them cross each other in the area. Ley lines are prehistoric lines that run across the UK, and some believe them to be hotspots of paranormal activity. Much to our horror, we discovered that exactly where we were sitting on that wall, two ley lines crossed each other. To us, that explained why we must have felt uncomfortable, like we weren't welcome. We decided to go back the next day, and in the daylight, discovered that the house was not there. The three of us were completely sure that we had seen a building, Lucas going as far to say that he could see the architectural structure of the house. But even in the comfort of the daylight, the area just felt wrong. It sounds insane, I know, but it's been itching my brain for the past few weeks, and I needed to tell someone about it because my family doesn't believe me, and Lucas and Reese's families don't believe them either. I'm hoping by getting this story out there, someone might have an explanation as to why the house was there, and then suddenly wasn't. And maybe there's an explanation as to why we felt scared and dreading what would happen if we stayed in that area. I can't help but think it had something to do with us fucking around in the chapel. Maybe I sound completely insane, but this whole situation doesn't sit right with me. We all felt the same thing, and were certain that the house was there that night, and then just wasn't the next. We know what we saw and what we felt, but we have no explanation for it. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode of Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like to hear narrated on this channel or my podcast, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. Want to thank everybody for the nice compliments you had to my friend's band, Murder, and their video Faith in Me. It seemed to be kind of a hit. I did get a number of messages via email and on social media, and there were some comments down below too. Glad you guys dug it. I don't do that all the time, but when I do, I'm glad that you enjoy it. If you haven't already, hey, why not subscribe and like the channel, hit the notification bell for every time that I upload, and share it with your friends. Share the podcast too. It's on every one of your favorite podcast outlets. If you'd like to take your support a step further, there's a link to my Patreon page down there in the description, along with all of my social media links. And of course, you can get yourself some Campfire Crew merchandise. There's a link down there to my TeePublic storefront. Everyone, be excellent to each other. Until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.